As a general rule in life, you should only eat as many mangoes in one day as you have showers. If you're having 3 showers a day because you're extremely athletic, you're living in the tropics, I think you can get away with eating 3 mangoes. If you're only having 1 shower a day, 2 showers, 1 or 2 mangoes is the limit, let me tell you. As a general rule of thumb, I would also say that on almost any topic, if you read 3 articles, 3 really good specialized articles, just reading those 3 articles is enough for you to form an opinion of your own, offer a critique of your own, write an article of your own. Now, whether or not you write a good article or a bad article will depend on who you are. If you're an idiot, you may write an idiotic article. That's okay. Makes the world go round. If the 3 articles you read were all horribly biased and poorly informed, you may produce a new article that is itself horribly biased and poorly informed. And if you have no prior familiarity with a particular field, you'll be at another disadvantage, etc., etc. But I just say this partly because there's an illusion that you need to have years of accumulated experience and expertise to write an article on a given subject. I would say that, right now, if you got 3 very solid articles, serious articles from serious publication, on the topic of Russia's current strategy in Syria. What is Russia's geopolitical strategy, military strategy in Syria right now, 2016? I think if you read 3 articles about it, 3 good articles, you could then come on YouTube and voice an opinion and maybe have something really valuable and meaningful to say. One of the controversies, Vegan Gains talks about is the significance of this chemical IGF-1. IGF-1 is a very interesting chemical. There's a lot of new research, and I do think currently, there are unsettled questions. Maybe in the next 10 years, we'll really know all the facts, but it's certainly an area of, kind of groundbreaking new science. If you read 3 really good, solid articles about IGF-1, I think you could form your own opinion, etc., etc. Now, with various people who have tried to denounce me and defame me on the internet, and I'm thinking at the moment primarily of Unnatural Vegan, aka Swayze, I have said to them, I haven't told them to be silent, I haven't tried to censor them, I haven't tried to say, how dare you criticize me. I've often said to them, why don't you actually read the articles I've written on that subject and form your own opinion and then criticize me or disagree with me or what have you. I was a scholar of Buddhism for more than 10 years, and for me, being a scholar of Buddhism, my approach included Buddhist philosophy, it included the history of the languages, it included philology, it included the study of not just ancient texts, but ancient stone inscriptions, but it included also politics, history in that sense. Topics like the history of slavery in Buddhism. Sure, history of the oppression of women, all kinds of things that maybe traditional religious scholars of Buddhism wouldn't want to deal with, or wouldn't deal with in the same rigorous, unflinching, unflattering sense that I was willing to deal with those things. Now, I'm not proud of what I did in Buddhism, but I'm aware of both how rare it is, how extraordinary it is, and of the contribution I made to that field, and how my contribution was regarded by other specialists who themselves made, major contributions to the field over decades and decades, whatever their story is on a case-by-case basis. So I'm not lacking in self-confidence about it, and not unduly humble, just including the fact that I actually did spend years reading the ancient canonical language, Pali, which very, very few people read. In Chinese, that's called Bali 1. When someone like Unnatural Vegan wants to denounce me and defame me on the internet on the basis of digging up a couple of comments on a discussion forum and quoting them out of context. I mean, for her, she has no ability to understand the context because she has no interest in Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy, or what have you. What I say back to her isn't, how dare you, or don't do this, or I don't beg her to censor herself or something. What I say is, well, look, I spent more than 10 years engaged in this field of study. If you Google my name plus Buddhism, you're going to find a lot of evidence of just how much work I did, and even of how that work was received. I do have some peer-reviewed articles, which supposedly Unnatural Vegan has respect for. She's always talking about peer-reviewed articles, but not in my case. She had no respect for the fact that I have peer-reviewed articles. Does she? Has Unnatural Vegan published a peer-reviewed article on any topic ever in her life? ever. Not to my knowledge. It's like, okay, I do have peer-reviewed articles about Buddhism, but also if you Google around a bit, and I could give her some links, you can see other websites that just take seriously the legacy of the work I did, that are providing links to my articles and talking about it and saying, oh, gee, if you're interested in this topic, check out the work by Hazel Hazard on it, blah, blah, blah. There were a lot of things on the internet that reflect that other people who know what they're talking about do take what I did seriously and do value it or do appreciate it, whether it's the work on the language or the philosophy or what have you. Now, with that being said, anytime you write about religion or politics, there are also people who will just bitterly hate you for having dared to have an opinion. And there are. I mean, you can very easily find, especially if you're talking about casual website discussion forums, you can find anonymous people saying I'm a terrible human being because I dared to criticize something in the religion they believe in, or I said something they consider unflattering about the religion. Like, if you're going to talk about slavery in Buddhism, if you're going to talk about the status of women in Buddhism, but even if you're going to talk about the reality of meditation, and you can talk about financial corruption in Buddhism, politics in Buddhism, anything. I would think it's the same in Catholicism. I don't know. I mean, I have no involvement. But I think if you talk about politics in the Catholic religion, what have you, yes, there are also people on the internet, saying you're an idiot or disagreeing with you or insulting you. That's part of the game. That's one of the reasons why I'm prepared for the type of defamation and innuendo that currently is circulating in the vegan demimonde. I'd already dealt with that for years and years and years within Buddhist scholarship, within Buddhist things on the internet. Unnatural Vegan is supposed to be better than that. Unnatural Vegan is supposed to be better than Durianrider, but what Unnatural Vegan actually did to me, and what she threatened to do even more to me, is just as bad as Durianrider. And in fact, the only other person at that time I could remember doing it was Durianrider. I was like, look, what you're doing to me is exactly the same thing Durianrider did to me, or tried to do to me, which was to say that my whole career as a scholar of Buddhism was bunk or nonsense on the basis of, digging up these kind of comments on discussion forums. Those anonymous hate comments on discussion forums, this kind of repartee, that's not a peer-reviewed article. Okay? Even if I had only one peer-reviewed article, you should weigh the significance of that very differently from anonymous haters saying I'm an idiot on a website discussion forum. Even if I had only given one lecture at the invitation of a professor emeritus at Oxford University, England, even though it's the only one, that's a hint that there's something to be taken seriously about my past career as a scholar of Buddhism. Even if it was only one time that I have been a resident at Bhikkhu Bodhi's temple in the United States, or only one time I was a resident at his former temple in Sri Lanka, even if I have only been to and meditated in and spoken to senior monks in these Buddhist temples a few times each over a 10-year period, even if I've only been received at and given lectures at respected academic institutions a few times. Again, has Unnatural Vegan done anything like this in her whole career? Has she been recognized in any field of study, whether philosophy or politics, any field of original research, or any language, studies into any language, the way I've been recognized in Europe, at major universities in Europe, but also, of course, it's much more important to me, at both Buddhist monasteries and Buddhist universities in Asia, the universities that have received me. Okay, so we don't expect much from a guy like Durianrider. We don't. If Durianrider, I assume he didn't even do that himself. I assume he didn't even go around the internet and get those links. Somebody would have sent them to him. But, if Durianrider is going to defame me by saying I was never a real scholar of Buddhism, blah, 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 you have to hope that your audience is able to just laugh this off and dismiss it because of who Durianrider is and because of the horrible, calumny and slander and defamation that he's made against so many people again and again with so little reason. But guess what? You know what? Unnatural Vegan did the same thing to me. She was just as bad or worse. And I think that when Unnatural Vegan did it to me, I think a lot of people unquestioningly took it seriously. I think a lot of people reacted to that, and it's partly from messages people have sent me. They didn't look into it. They thought I was a fraud, or there was something terrible about my my history as a scholar of Buddhism. Now, I say again, any of you, I welcome you all. You can form your own opinion about my legacy as a former scholar of Buddhism. If you read 3 articles that I've written, a couple of my articles have been translated from English into Chinese, by the way. You could read 3 articles that I've written, and you could come to your own conclusion on what I have to say about Buddhism or what have you. I do regret that I ever became a scholar of Buddhism. I wish I had done something else with those 10 years, those more than 10 years. Sure, I regret it. But of course, it's a very different thing for me to say that. For me to say, wow, this is a decision in my life that I feel was a waste of my time, or that didn't turn out well, or that I regret. It's a very different thing for me to say it than it is for a natural vegan to say it, and for a natural vegan to say it without reading even one of my articles. With pure malice, behaving the same way Durianrider does, Unnatural Vegan just chose to cherry pick, I believe, 2 conversations, one on Facebook and one on a Buddhist discussion forum, where people saying I'm a jerk or something, and she has no understanding of and no interest in any of the intellectual background. Like, you can be having a debate about vegetarianism within Buddhism, or meditation, or politics, or anything with slavery, or anything else. And if someone who has absolutely no background in the field, they won't even understand the technical terms. They won't understand factually who's right or who's wrong. And in most of those discussions, you're talking about internet discussion forums, it's not even like ancient Latin or ancient Greek. There's a significant number of human beings on Earth who can read a language like Latin or Greek. The number of people who legitimately can do original research in Pali, in the Pali canon, it's frighteningly close to 0 people. And I was one of those people who did original research in that language. And again, some people respected me for it. You can see evidence on the internet very easily. I sent Unnatural Vegan links. And some people hated me for it. Which, again, I don't feel sorry for myself, because I think, again, if you were asking tough political questions within the Catholic religion, within Judaism, within any kind of massive and conservative, religion, you're going to get those kinds of reactions. And anyway, I could tell all kinds of stories about that. We shouldn't hold any of these people to any standard. I can't say to you that Unnatural Vegan is answerable to a higher standard than Durianrider. I can't. And it's not my job to police the internet or to police the vegan internet or anything else. What I can tell you is that when you engage in a critique of other people, and this really is about people, this isn't about their views, it's about me as a person being pilloried and defamed and denounced by Unnatural Vegan, which is what you did. I think, in terms of personal integrity, there is a huge difference between, say, reading 3 of their articles and then coming to a conclusion about this is the type of person this is, or this is the type of research they do, or what have you, and putting together an opinion that's based on, I don't know, baseless rumors and innuendo and one-sentence remarks in an internet forum, or a disagreement, people insulting each other in an internet forum or something, like Facebook messages, or some crappy message board or what have you. There is a difference, and I don't know, might be a slight exaggeration, but of Unnatural Vegan followers, was there even a single person who was sensitive to that difference? Was there even a single person that, hey, wait a minute, you're dismissing more than 10 years of work that this guy did, and more than 10 years of work that in some obvious ways was recognized by academic institutions, despite the fact that I never got a PhD in that field. But again, you can Google it. It's very obvious the type of recognition I got, both from Western academia and Eastern academia, and even to some extent from Buddhist institutions as such. And who is Unnatural Vegan? What legitimacy does she have? Does she have even one peer-reviewed article? Does she have any distinction in any field of research, in any field of writing, in any field of publication? Has she done any job that we're aware of ever in her life? Because to some extent, my view of the world, you guys know, It's influenced by just politics I was involved with at City Hall, humanitarian causes I was concerned about in Laos and Cambodia. And yes, my research on Buddhism, my involvement in the Green Party, all these things you've heard me mention so many times, it shapes my worldview. And for someone like Unnatural Vegan, I don't know about anything like that. I don't know about anything of real substance she's done. And I've got to say, maybe it is for that reason that she did with such, tremendous lack of human sympathy, choose to come at me in precisely that way that was just as low and just as vile as Durianrider, but was much more damaging, because Unnatural Vegan has managed to cultivate the illusion that her opinion should be respected as science, when she's not a scientist. She's never been a scientist. And her supposed respect for peer-reviewed publications, for academic accomplishments, in her interaction with me, it's proven that her respect for those things is 100% phony.